Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back. This is happy hour number 79 with Constellation from Gravita and NodeSet. We've got Nick, we've got Rhett, and we've got Wander. We are so glad that you guys could make it to the call today. Say hello to the world.
Thank you so much, JT. Appreciate you having us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love to be here.
JT here on behalf of the Ethfinance Community on Reddit, and thanks again to the EV Mavericks for hosting this happy hour for this day, the 79th episode. Give us a thumbs up, smash the bells if you haven't already done that. The Weekly Doots live stream is all about showcasing the best of the best from the week of the Ethfinance community on Reddit. This is a read-along reaction series, and if you want to follow along, head on over to dailydoots.com, designed and produced by our very own Hani Abu. And while you're at it, if you want to grab today's POAP, I think we got a POAP available for today, and you can get that from Hani Abu as well, also at dailydoots.com. It's available for checkout on Ethereum, Arbitrum, Optimism, and Base. Big thanks to Tricky Troll for capturing and curating each of these days' Doots, and the A word for curating this beloved weekly list. Subscribe to us on Apple and iTunes. Just search Ethfinance EV Mavericks, also available on Libsyn, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. You can also mint this episode at pods.media/EV Mavericks. If you're watching this stream on Discord, make sure that you go ahead and mute my window. That'll avoid any echoes or delays you may hear in your headphones. And as always, if you know somebody that wants to get in on a piece of this action, send them my way. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for our morning roundup. SPUP UL6 chimes in Ethereum. User you got trisomy 21 at 25.39, $10.9 on that bleeding out ratio at 0.039. I heard we maybe touched 0.404 briefly. I don't know. And here we go. User uses Pink Video has Ethfinance plus 6 subscribers over this last week with 90,873 holders subscribed. Our weekly haiku comes to us by way of JS Tears on Reddit. Know where you belong. Interest rates bang a gong. Ether sings along. How does he do it? JS Tears. How does he do the weekly haiku? And of course, Choda says, ETH, take my energy. And finally, our shit post of the week, because we always save the best for first. User Minimal Gravitas says, GM ETH fam, I got an idea. Feel free to veto it, but hear me out first. Premise number 1, we are pretty well represented in many of the biggest DAOs at dailydoots.com/delegates. The premise number 2, those DAOs control treasuries worth over $20 billion. You can check that out at deepdao.io/organizations. And premise number 3, to successfully take over 50% of Bitcoin's hash rate, either by buying ASICs or setting up facilities to manufacture them yourself, would cost roughly $20 billion. And so the conclusion is Ethfinance should orchestrate the takedown to Bitcoin, and then the annoying trolls that have been showing up here the last few days would be less obnoxious. Mods would have less work to do, and the daily threads would be less cluttered. That is your ship post of the week, courtesy of Minimal Gravitas. He is a duder number 40 on our duder rich list, which, by the way, I need to go over our rich list of this week. We got 1,084 people that have made the Doots at least one time. Starting at number 10 on the rich list, Scientist at 90, Ethical Trade at 94, 696_ETH at 96, Creptowell, Currency at 101, Set One Less at 103, Harog at 103, climbing up the ranks. Harog is on fire. Tricky Troll at 122, Benito 2030 at 140, Logri the Bard climbing up to 147, and the almighty everlasting man himself, Super Fizz, at the top at 215. Well, that brings us square back to our special guests for this week. We got Rhett, we got Nick, and we got Wander. I don't know if you guys even understand what we just talked about, but those Doots, those are nominated each day. We have a guy that takes the top 10 of each daily, and then I go in and assign a point, and they get 1 point each time they make the list. And when we look at that rich list, I mean, with over 1,000 people in the sub, there's a lot of people that are contributing good stuff over there. And then you see that top 10 list. I mean, those are the diamonds at the top. So But anyway, you guys are the diamonds of the show. We're super glad that you could make it here. I believe I've met most of you in real life. I believe Wander for sure, Nick for sure, Rhett, I'm not sure. But if you've been to Eat Denver a couple of times, there's maybe a chance you slipped over to Owaki's Castle and got some of my barbecue. I don't know. But anyway, so I met Nick and Wander through Rocket Pool. And so now,
Oh, you're missing the first part actually. We came from Ethfinance. That was how I got into
that's
Ethereum.
how you
Was
got into it.
Ethfinance.
That's right. I skipped over
Yeah,
that whole
yeah.
iceberg of information.
That was pre Rocket Pool. That was the 2017 to 2019 period.
Gosh, amazing. And it's so cool. Like it's wild how like the masses of people have kind of flowed away from Reddit, but it's still such an important part of like good curated information. It's like every time there's a big price shift, everybody comes home to roost for a second. You know?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and like we all actually, I think we first met you, JT, I think at HollerCon in Hawaii,
in
and
Hawaii.
having beers and singing karaoke.
Oh my gosh. That night spawned a tale which I won't go into with my wife that we call Honolulu Hurrah, Lost in Hawaii. It was like a bad sequel from some kind of 80s like show. But anyway, yeah, after the karaoke bar thing, let's just say that I attracted the attention of the local police in Honolulu trying to find her. It's like, oh my God, what are we doing? Too many energy drinks, too much alcohol, really good time. So
That it was.
So let's go ahead. You guys are going to kind of really guide this whole thing because I think people need to know what Gravita is. They need to know what NodeSet is. They need to know the relationship between those two entities. This thing called Constellation, which is surrounding Rocket Pool a little bit too. So let's get into it. Who wants to lead off?
I can go ahead and start. So
I'm gonna nominate Nick.
sure. I'll let Rhett speak to Gravita, but in terms of NodeSet, so NodeSet is a company that was formed about a year and a half ago. We came from, Mike and I come from the Rocket Pool community. We had sort of seen some of the scaling challenges that Rocket Pool had associated with the bonding mechanisms to bring in capital on the node operator side of the equation, and that inspired us to begin this project and raise capital and begin building what we sort of call layer 2 on top of Rocket Pool that would ingest node operators. We would onboard them, have minimal requirements, performance requirements for them to participate, build a liquid staking protocol that would allow users to mint XRETH, which is what we call XRETH and XRPL, so provide the node operators bond and then trustlessly distribute that amongst this growing node set and allow Rocket Pool to scale more seamlessly. And that's sort of what we've been working on. That project is called Constellation. Longer term, NodeSet has broader ambitions, which we can touch on later. But in short, we want to be sort of an organization that really focuses on ensuring that independent node operators, whether that's a solo staker, a Rocket Pool operator, or even an SMB operator, we want to make sure that these entities survive and thrive in the years ahead. And that means connecting them with opportunity, right? None of these entities have the benefits of economies of scale that large commercial enterprise operators have, either on the engineering side of things or on business development, right? So if we can act as an entity that goes out, forms partnerships with protocols in the ecosystem, and connect that compute demand with compute supply, I think we can do a lot to really help maintain Ethereum's base decentralization and ensure that solo operators don't disappear into the ether over time.
I'll speak to Gravita a little bit. So Gravita, we have been around for a couple of years as well. Our initial application, Gravita, is a lending and borrowing. Well, it's a liquidity fork where you can mint our stablecoin Grai using ETH and liquid staking ETH collateral. It's on ETH mainnet and several L2s. It's a smaller CDP platform, pretty similar ethos and focus as the NodeSet team. Decentralizing Ethereum we think is really important, so we've really prioritized being an early supporter of newer, higher quality LST collateral. So we were one of the earlier supporters of rETH as collateral. I think we were the first lending market to support wrapped ETH from EtherFi, Sweeth from Swell, and some others, OSETH from Stakewise V3. That lending protocol is the first thing we've deployed. We're also partnering with Constellation or with NodeSet on deploying the first version of Constellation in the world. So NodeSet will be running the infrastructure. Gravita will be launching XRETH and XRPL, which are these Constellation-based. It's an ETH liquid staking token. It's the only sustainably zero-fee liquid staking token that will exist. And then XRPL will be the only liquid staked RPL token that exists. So that's a little bit about the relationship of the two projects.
Excellent. Wander, anything you want to add?
Well, I would love to point out the thing that Rhett mentioned right at the very end there, with XRETH being the only sustainable zero-fee LST. I think it's important to dive into what that actually means, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit more as well. But the ultimate takeaway for everybody is that you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have an LST, you can use it in DeFi, and it will have no fees. That you get the full return that Ethereum offers its staking participants, but without having to lock it up into a validator. You can use it in DeFi. You can, do whatever you want with it. You can lend against it. You can just hang on to it, put it in your wallet, and forget about it. Come back in 20 years and have, a lot more Ether than you started with. You don't have to pay anybody for the privilege of this. It's a fantastic option. I think that the market truly has never seen before. I mean, this is it sounds revolutionary because it kind of is. I'm super proud of this design. I think it's something that's totally unique, and I think it's really going to lead to a lot of really fun stuff for folks that want to have an LST, or they want to have a solo node, but they don't want to lock it up, right? Or they want to have an LST, but they don't want to pay fees, or they want to have a solo node, but they don't want to, actually run it for some reason. So, ironically, a good example of somebody who would fit this super well is Nixo, the the person who ironically knows some of the most about staking, but lives a nomadic lifestyle and has a very difficult time running a staking operation in a way that actually helps the network. So what we can do is we can say, hey, Nixo, well, we're going to be on the ETH Staker show next week, so we'll tell her then too. But
Yeah.
Get some XRETH, and it's the same thing. All your assets are spread across hundreds of different node operators. You pay zero fees.
So where's the starting point if people want to get involved with Constellation?
Great question.
Well, node operator side or
Both.
depositor side?
Yeah, let's start with the depositor side. I think that might be the fastest one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
This is a question for Rhett.
Sorry, I think I was muted. So yeah, for deposits, you'll be able to mint and burn both XRETH and XRPL from the Gravita application. Just a note on timeline. So we are imminently starting the testnet. Our final audit the final audit of Constellation is wrapping up soon, and so we plan to launch minting of XRETH and XRPL in October. So it is not live for minting today, but it soon will be. But you could, starting next week, go and mint some test XRETH on Heleshki if you would like. So that would be the first place you could participate. It would be on testnet. Let me briefly touch on why we're able to make it zero commission, by the way. So the way that this works is someone who deposits some ETH in Mint's XRETH, that ETH is distributed to one of the NodeSet node operators. There's currently about 260. We have another 150 in queue, so very large node operator group. What that node operator does is they spin up a rocket pool mini pool. And since a rocket pool,
custodial, by the way, I should mention that too. It's no one gets to touch your assets. It's all handled by smart contracts. It's 100% non-custodial.
Yeah, that's a great point, Wander. So, since they're spinning up a rocket pool mini pool, which is paid a staking commission from the RETH side of things, that staking commission goes to pay the node operator and pay NodeSet and Gravita. And since we can generate revenues from that node operator commission, the XRETH holder pays zero commission. And that's why it's sustainable, because we have this other method of generating revenues. And then the hope is also we can unlock growth for Rocket Pool once again. As many people here probably know, Rocket Pool has been node operator bottlenecked for a long time now. The deposit pool is persistently full. So our goal is to come in, delete the deposit pool, make it so that our ETH can be minted again, etc.
Does any of that have anything to do with tokenomics of the Rocket Pool token? That's always like an elephant in the room kind of question.
Well, are you referring to current tokenomics or
current
future changes?
Current, but if you have future tokenomics, data at your ready, go ahead and share that too. I'm just asking an elephant in the room question, mostly because I'm a fat guy, so I'm kind of.
I mean, the system is designed around the current tokenomics paradigm, right? And there may be some imminent changes coming around deploying ETH-only mini pools. We are compatible with that potential upgrade as well. So,
okay.
Constellation will continue to function. And when the Saturn comes around and the tokenomics rework occurs, that will require some upgrades on our side and changes. But we'll be fine to make those, and of course the mini pools will continue to run just fine, right? So that as an XRETH holder has no impact. For XRPL, we may need to make some changes to make sure that we're compatible, but regardless, I'm not too worried about that, and so we should be good.
And then we're going to rewind the conversation. So we had the depositor side of the conversation. What about the node operator side of the conversation?
So this is where we come in. Yeah, the NodeSet side is go to nodeset.io/join. And that's the easiest answer. We accept anybody who has a validator already on mainnet for 6 months and with provably decent performance.
I've already responded.
What's that?
Yeah,
I've already.
He's already he's already applied. Love to see that.
Oh, awesome.
So you're gonna have to provide proof that this is indeed your node. You're gonna have to hit some minimum performance thresholds, and then you're gonna have a sort of anti-Sybil or a Sybil resistance interview with myself or someone else on the team, where we'll just ask you about yourself, your node, your experience thus far running validators on Ethereum. That then sort of
your address,
full KYC.
We don't ask any of that. That was a joke.
Yeah, I'll just have you fly into KC for a barbecue, and we'll just take care of it that way.
Exactly.
We do that. So every once it's been known to happen that if you meet us at ETH Denver, then we count that as a civil check, basically.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I can assure you my node is super healthy. It only eats free range Ethereum. So it's on a steady diet of, okay, I'll shut up about that. Listen, there's a whole bunch of people in Discord. And I want to make sure that I'm not asking all the questions, because I know there's some very intelligent people in here. I see some usernames already. If you want to unmute your microphone and ask the team any questions before we move on, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. I've got quite a few. So in, I guess, reverse order from how the speakers introduce themselves. The first question I guess I have is, we currently, all the LSTs basically are extracting a fee for managerial overhead, and Rocket Pool is extracting a fee basically because you have to compensate for the capital cost of the RPL being there, right? If you're not touching the underlying Rocket Pool protocol, I don't understand how you're getting rid of the need of those fees. Is it just now participants are acting out of generosity and trust? Or is there another source of revenue that I'm not thinking of that allow you to route around that? Maybe I just didn't get it from your presentation, but why doesn't the XR ETH token need a fee, and how are the XRPL minters making money if they're not getting a fee?
Yeah, we can quickly run through that. So, the current Rocket Pool mini pool is 8 ETH of node operator capital, as well as 2.4 ETH worth of RPL. So it's not just the RPL, it's the Ether bond as well. And that is what XRETH is. We are funding the 8 Ether portion of the mini pool, which is securing the RETH, the 24 RETH that's also within that mini pool.
Okay.
So,
And we're funding the RPL portion. So
Then
both
you
the
get-
8 RETH and the 2.
Yeah, so then you give the 8 ETH over to the node operator. The node operator borrows the 24. They make the full staking yield on their 8. They make the commission that they would otherwise be making, right?
Yep.
And you're just saying the only thing they get to keep is the commission. So the
no,
full,
the commission goes to, the commission goes to the node operators and the protocol administrator, the 14% on the 24 RETH, and the XRETH holder simply gets 100% of the Beacon and MEV rewards passed through.
okay, so they're just getting the staking yield. The XR ETH holders are just getting the full staking yield on the 8th
Yes.
ETH that's given to the node operator. The
Yes.
commission then is going over to the XR ETH holders.
That's right.
No,
Yeah.
the-
So-
the-
so
the-
XRPL, I misspoke. The XRPL holders.
No, XRPL holders
No.
don't receive commission. The
So where's
node
their yield coming
operators
from?
and the protocol receive the commission from the XRETH, and the XRPL holders receive the XRPL. Or sorry, they receive the underlying. So XRPL is completely isolated. It's just RPL, and it's a staking. It basically returns the
Inflation.
equal amount to the amount that Rocket Pool inflates RPL to node operators using the reward system that they have. So when you for everyone who's unfamiliar with the way that Rocket Pool works, when you stake on Rocket Pool as a node operator, which by the way is still the best way to use Rocket Pool, it's the highest returning way to use it. It's not liquid if you do that, but if you were to bring 8 of your own Ether to Rocket Pool to make a mini pool to get paired with the 24 RETH from their deposit pool, you also, in order to use the system, have to bring at least 2.4 ETH worth of RPL. RPL is their native governance token, and obviously utility token as well in this context. So for us, what we've done on our end is we've liquidized the 8 ETH and the RPL portions that would normally have to be brought to the Rocket Pool protocol. And the wonderful thing about this is that you don't have to actually bring both either. You can just bring one or the other. So if you have a bunch of RPL and you don't have any Ether that you want to put into the system, you can do that. You can just exchange it for XRPL. And XRPL will grow at the same rate that a typical Rocket Pool bond would, minus the fees that the system takes to, of course, like Gravita will be, using protocol fees to incentivize everything. So some of the XRPL emission or some of the RPL emissions that will go to fund the growth of XRPL are taken, as well as the part of the R8 commission that is used to fund the.
So let's walk
Alright.
through the junior senior tranche sort of model. If a slashing event occurs on one of the node operators in NodeSet, who loses the money first? Is it the XR ETH holder?
Yes,
Yes,
that is
it's the junior tranche of capital in the capital stack.
So the reason you're getting a higher yield than just RETH is because you're accepting the junior tranche risk of a misbehavior from the node operators, because
Yes.
the node operators no longer have something at stake.
Correct.
So the reason you're doing KYC is because
They
essentially
do have something
equal
at
out
stake. I should mention
reputation maybe, but like they don't
it's
have capital.
it's more than just reputation too. And this is something we've actually talked about quite a bit, is how to prevent this. So for one, obviously we're not going to onboard anybody who's ever had any mishaps. We also obviously only onboard people who are unique individuals and generally have a reputation in the community. So like you mentioned, reputation. There's also the fact that they've been running validators for a long time with a known good behavior, right? They have their own capital that they run, often on the same nodes. So there's that as well. The final piece of this, which I think makes it pretty interesting for everybody, is that as we add more and more things for NodeSet operators to do, Constellation is just one of the things that you could do as a NodeSet node operator. You can also run stakewise validators using external capital as well. But all these different protocols, and we're adding more and more integrations over time. But basically, if you were to get slashed or go down for a while or whatever, you get kicked out of NodeSet. So it's not a traditional sort of like you immediately get punished, but you lose all the future income.
You
and computer
forfeit revenue. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your reputation is basically a revenue stream, even though
Mhm.
you don't have capital at stake. It actually reads a lot like my monetizing honesty post, if you're familiar with that.
Yes, actually, yeah. We've been very inspired by a lot of the things that you've written over the years.
So the basic.
So,
Good. Sorry.
oh, sorry. So just a very high level summarize. To get the equivalent yield of solo staking, you are the bond, so you're no longer bond protected. So our ETH is bond protected, gives up 14%. You are not bond protected, you give up 0%. So that's like the shortest version, I think.
Right. Yeah.
And otherwise, what the node operator gets is just the rocket pool standard commission. That's all that. Like, if let's say they took in all of the ETH and they took in all the RPL required to run the node, they forfeit the RPL inflation. They forfeit all the staking rewards, and what they're left with is the commission for providing an IT service.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Got it.
Yes. I'd also like to add one more thing here regarding sort of the security model of the system, and that is the distribution of funds and how that's managed. So within Rocket Pool proper, there's a sort of power law distribution of assets where you see certain operators running 5%, 3% of the total protocol assets, right? And these are just whales who can afford to deploy a lot of validators, and they're awesome. We love all of those guys. And then there's a long tail, right, of independent single node operators who are running 1 validator, 2 validators, 3 validators, and there's probably over 1,000 nodes that we see that are sort of in that class. The way that Constellation distributes assets is we don't favor anyone. It's a egalitarian flat distribution, and we sort of set a global validator target. You started at 1 and incremented up over time as more assets flow into the system. And basically, if you set it at 1, everyone can deploy up to 1 validator, and simultaneously, we are onboarding new operators, right, over time, which is expanding capacity horizontally. And eventually, if we deem it necessary, we can increase the target by 1 more validator or by 2 more validators, whatever. But the goal here is to never let one node operator have excess exposure to protocol performance. And we think that's going to be extremely robust. And obviously, if you look at the general slashing metrics of Ethereum as a whole, of Rocket Pool specifically, the risk of slashing is pretty low. Rocket Pool, I think, has had like 9 individual slashing events over multiple years with thousands of operators, many of whom are running nodes for the first time. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to have a really, really robust system here. And of course, if there's some kind of slashing event that occurs, we can even consider, depositing assets to basically make the protocol whole as well. So
yeah, just the likelihood is so low that I think that, we can't guarantee anything, but it seems pretty likely that we'll be able to offset it in some shape or form, right? The only way that would not be possible is if there was like huge slashing event across all of Ethereum, in which case kind of everybody in the
no one's safe.
Yeah.
So with 260 current onboarded node operators, if one operator got slashed, the total exposure of XRETH is less than 0.5%.
Yeah, it's like make it up in a couple days. Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question I had on the Gravita side. So you're launching these tokens, but it's not part of the lending program per se. It's just a separate thing that Gravita is doing. As I understand it, you don't.
That's exactly right.
Will you eventually be adding XR, ETH, or XRPL as collateral types for minting and Grai?
XRETH for sure. XRPL most likely. It would have much more conservative parameters. But we're ideally looking to get you and everyone here as much utility as possible. So we're also talking to many other lending protocols already, DEXs, yield trading platforms, etc. So the goal is to get XRETH pretty widely adopted, so that yes, you can mint Grai against it, but you could also mint other stables against it, or use it in a money market, etc.
And by the way, we're totally open to feedback there. If there are clear venues where there's a lot of demand from the community, we want to hear about it. So you can DM me, DM Rhett, whomever on the team, and we will listen and chat with you.
That's fine too.
Yeah, or chat publicly with us. Yeah, whatever.
Another question on Gravita is, so Liquidity is having their V2 coming out. I read the docs and posts on Ethfinance maybe 3 weeks ago or so. Gravita has forked from that. Are you planning on importing the fork and launching a Gravita V2 from the Liquidity V2 codebase? Or are you
That's a great question. We've been in pretty active discussions with Liquidity. I love a lot of things about Liquidity V2, and there is a decent chance, although there are some substantive changes we would make. So one of them being Liquidity does a single stability pool per collateral asset. The stability pool is what liquidates those assets. We would do one stability pool for the whole system, which is what Gravita already does. There's a few other kind of key changes that we would make. Whether or not we explicitly fork V2, one of the things that they're doing that we certainly are going to move toward is this kind of market adaptive interest rate. We think that that'll be kind of a better way to smooth out peg performance than just the pure redemption mechanism. Regardless, we're big fans of Liquidity V2. We're big fans of Liquidity itself. Gravita was the only ever. Yeah, we're the only ever friendly fork, and now for V2 they'll only allow friendly forks, partly based on our relationship, which was really positive for both of us, whereas a lot of the other forks weren't as much. So I don't have a 100% answer for you on whether or not we'll adopt their full architecture or just you'll see some similarities show up, but the most important similarity you will see show up is a more adaptive interest rate.
Yeah, I mean the feature where people can choose what they want to pay in order to sort of choose their place in line in the redemption queue, I think is a powerful market adaptive force, right? It's a governance-free mechanism that protects the hard peg. So I like that much of it. Certain other thing. Yeah. Like there's some good ideas in there, as you said. I don't know if I would buy into it just 100% for the sake of being, just Liquidity, but directionally, I think they have a couple really cool ideas in there.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. And then the fact that people are setting their own interest rates, it could become this really interesting, like almost market rate oracle for the rest of DeFi. Of you take the aggregate interest rate, and that gives you a sense of what maybe baseline interest rate should be,
rather than derivative signal, which is great.
Yeah.
The next thing I had was there was a comment towards the start that we're seeing centralization forces acting on the Ethereum validator set because economy of scale, right? And because of technical economy of scale, Coinbase can afford to pay one engineer a couple of hours. Each of the home staker has to kind of duplicate those hours, right? And so due to technical aptitude, there is a centralizing force on the validator set. And I made a comment on the last guest that we had that I'm afraid we're going to see much the same thing happening on restaking, but on steroids, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be 20 different AVSs, and in order to optimize your ETH yield as a node operator, you're going to have to spend 20 times the hours. Oh, and these things aren't like Rocket Pool where they put a lot of time into polish, right? These things are like, the dev docs are sparse. You have to get the answers straight out of the dev's mouth. Like it's much less accessible, much higher technical aptitude, much more complicated hardware in some cases of things like AI inference, for example, for ritual.net.
Yeah.
And I see the same thing that you're saying, but much more prevalent on restaking.
It's not just restaking. It's also all the other L1s out there that are like little L1s that are trying to do their own app-specific things. It's also, anything that is...
Sequencers on L2s.
On L2s. Yeah, I mean, all these things, anything in Web3 that needs compute, especially the more diverse and specialized it becomes. ZK Proving is a great example of this right now. It already exists, where you basically have this... I mean, in that case, it's okay, or more okay, because you have proofs that are being generated. So it's, you can't really game them or anything. But the network is less resilient when you have, fewer participants. So This is exactly why when we were building this, I mean, our original idea was purely one from the Rocket Pool community because that's just where Nick and I saw the problem initially, and we were like, well, let's solve it this way, right? But as we were doing this, that's why we started seeing, wow, this isn't just a problem in Rocket Pool. This is a problem across the industry, and the industry needs a solution.
And
So
one other point here is this is a problem on the protocol side as well. So we interface with a number of protocols, and the BD efforts, the engineering efforts required to interface with node operators can become substantive, right? And especially if you talk about deploying a permissionless module or just trying to build a heavily decentralized operator set, that is a multi-year journey that is extremely hard to replicate. It's extremely hard to attract operators to the community without, really financially incentivizing in some cases. And they want to decentralize in some cases. And that may be for security reasons, redundancy reasons, legal reasons, but they just can't. So what they do is they end up talking to the same cohort of large enterprise class operators who have the BD and engineering teams, like you said, who can be the first in line, right? So, we think there's an opportunity here to improve the overall ecosystem on both sides of the equation for the node operators and for protocols if we can build a sort of brokering interface and also build the tooling and integrations to make this simpler.
There is a glaring hole where there isn't like on eigenlayer AVSs at the moment. In order to get someone to delegate capital to you, you kind of have there's nothing there but trust, right?
Right.
You have to discover a node operator and like, okay, over on Ethfinance we have the ASIS relay, and so I delegate to them because I know they're good guys.
They're sitting in the chat right now.
Hi, Kudeta.
I saw that.
Yeah, wave. But that's a trust model. And unfortunately, going through a trust model means you need to do something like KYC. And in order to, you are, according to me, who is delegating to you, you are the best. Anyway, so we have these situations where home stakers not only would have to go through the technical bar, but they have to go through a trust bar. And getting through that trust bar with an LRT, like, who is this random home staker if you're Kelp DAO, or right? Like they're not even going to look at you, right? So when the yield is exclusively accessible to large shops like Coinbase or Kraken, who have large tech teams and can support these things, you're going to see more of the yield go to those parties, and yield that corresponds to control of the network, right? And that is a danger to us all. And I see that you had made a comment this was happening for ETH validation. I think it's actually primed to be much, much worse as we start to get significant yield out of AVSs in the next year or two. And we need to come up with a solution, a pattern for that. As an ecosystem, what is our response going to be to enable home stakers to, at least if they want to put in the dev hours to figure this stuff out, to at least be able to access that yield and turn anyone that wants to into an IT shop that can use ETH with the maximum yield, right? Basically, to sell technical expertise. You have a system here with NodeSet where they're getting the Rocket Pool commission only, but we need to have a thing where they can do that for every AVS essentially as well, right? And it's a very similar design to see what I'm doing with Constellation. But the idea I'd plant in your head is this looks extensible and will solve a much larger problem in the next year or two.
Yep,
that's exactly
we're already working on that.
Cool. Let's talk more.
I should mention that, and let's talk about that. We can talk about it right now. Actually, this is something we love to talk about. So JT might have to stop us.
No, let's go, hit it.
Okay, all right. Well, so the number one thing that we did first and foremost, you should know that Rocket Pool's former client engineer that wrote the smart node for Rocket Pool, Joe Clappis, is now working with NodeSet. He's incredible. Community member, dev. He's an absolute legend in the Ethereum community. And part of what was so exciting about him, about what we're doing, is we have this larger, sort of more generalized vision. Rocket Pool is Rocket Pool, right? And they have to be kind of focused on building their protocol, right? But one of the things that we want to do is have this larger, sort of more generalized vision for decentralized compute. And so when he started designing the client that we use with NodeSet, we specifically talked to him about developing a modular architecture so that this client could side by side on the same node run any number of different services. Now, today, Hyperdrive only runs two, and that's because we launched it earlier this year, and it's only got a couple services on it. But eventually, we're going to have. I mean, we literally talk to people every day. It feels like about adding a new service and potentially doing that. So earlier today, we talked to somebody. It's a very frequent thing for us. It's very important to us to continue to add more and more value for our node operators over time. And this is not necessarily just purely out of like, selfishness of like, NodeSet wants to take a cut of everything or whatever. It's also out of, the safety of any integrations that we develop, because like you noted before, the, reputation is not enough essentially to it would be nothing at stake. And so if there were a pipeline of opportunities that people had access to, that they would get paid to from so their reputation is not purely just a single opportunity, then now that reputation can power multiple services, meaning that means that people individually have like a lot at stake, right? If they lose the capability to operate with NodeSet because they messed up, then that's a big deal, right? So the hope is that as we develop the infrastructure that we're building over the long period of time, that it's not even just us that just build these things too. We have other people in the community come in and build additional packages and modular plugins and things like that on top of the client software we use. So if you want to see something happen on the NodeSet network, all you have to do is go to the GitHub repository, download it, and build it yourself, basically. So that's sort of our thesis as to like how we can, as an Ethereum community and approach this problem. Obviously we're coming at it from a NodeSet centric point of view, but we have a lot of friends at the Ethereum Foundation that believe in this concept, and I think that we need the community to be on board with this. We need everybody to kind of say, let's be a node operator, let's contribute to the health of the network, not just, I have to have 32 ether to stake to make Ethereum better, but if I can just scrape enough to get a rocket pool mini pool going, then I can get onboarded a NodeSet. Now I can earn a lot more, and I can help the health of the ecosystem as we move forward. So
and we want to drive those requirements down over time, right? DBT does introduce opportunities to reduce those financial commitments and improve inclusion over time.
Mm-hmm. But, and there may be some services that don't require any bonding at all, or there's some interesting things out there that are going on that you might be able to include people who have no experience running a node for different kinds of protocols. Now that's not the case for staking, because there's like a kind of a large penalty if something goes wrong, and you want to be really careful because you're running other people's assets in that scenario. But there may be opportunity to run data availability or ZK compute or something like that doesn't necessarily have so much of a penalty so much as it is just okay, well, things are less resilient if somebody goes down, basically. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in this space moving forward, and we have our eye on a larger vision for sure. So on this topic, if you, Logri, or anyone has an idea of what they would like to see NodeSet's network tackle in terms of compute, or projects that you think are worth the attention of the NodeSet network, then definitely get in touch. We would love to hear all your thoughts about all of that stuff.
More generally, there's some concepts in this idea I've been talking about potentially incubating. So we're very close in some ways. You should talk with us.
Absolutely.
We'll do. Looking forward to it.
I think that'll be a productive conversation and rather serendipitous. Last thing I had a list of questions written down. The last question I had was, at no point did I see a fee carve out that would pay you gentlemen for all your KYC efforts or all the dev efforts here. How are you putting food on the table? Because this stuff takes a lot of time, and I'll just be in a 1 hour call. I mean, weeks, months of development effort, and then like months of audits, and those audits are expensive too. So how is this thing getting bankrolled? Because like, I know Gravitas has like 4.9 million or something of outstanding GRI. The interest on that is not paying even just for like one dev, let alone 3, let alone this whole ecosystem. So how are you going to make this work?
Yeah. So the 14% commission on RETH, that is split between the protocol and the node operators. The node operator receives 7%, the protocol receives 7%. Additionally, for all RPL XRPL that's minted, there's a fee on the emissions that are coming through the system as well. And that's sort of paying for the devs and everything like that. And of course, NodeSet raised capital from mostly individuals in the ecosystem to make this happen. And it's been a long, expensive journey, as you mentioned. But we're confident that at the proper scale, this becomes sustainable for our teams, for our respective teams.
That's good. That's good. So now you don't have to resort to smashing, grabbing CVS's anymore to make ends meet. That's great.
Exactly. I live in San Francisco, and all the Walgreens around me are just devastated.
They're already trashed. The opportunity is gone. Yeah, it's just,
mostly Nick has been doing that the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a rough
put
last
food on
2
his
years.
family.
What do you need with 74 sticks of Degree deodorant, man? I just
boil them down and get the
you eat them when you need it. So Nick mentioned it, but just to be very clear, XRPL is not zero commission. It is the only RPL LST. And one thing for any RPL holders here that we think is kind of interesting is if you're a person who thinks that converting to a liquid staking token is a taxable event, some people might like the tax loss harvesting since RPL price has not been super great lately. But that's your own tax question. but yeah, so XRETH is zero commission for the XRETH holder, but XRPL is not.
All right. If there's anybody else in the chat that wants to ask some questions before we move on, now's your chance. Also, thank you, Logri the Bard, for those great questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Logri.
All right. So now we're going to move on to our weekly Doots. So check this out, my friends from NodeSet and Gravita. If you want to hang out, that's great. If you got to go, just do an Irish goodbye. I'm going to read Reddit so you don't have to. We'd love for you to stick around and be our color commentators. The weekly Doots list is a list of submissions that are curated by the A Word and the Daily Doots by Tricky Troll. So I never read these out ahead of time. It's always a surprise to me, at least. And so if anybody wants to tune in and check it out, they can go to dailydoots.com. And we've already done our opening notes. We're going to dig right into Benito 2030 digs up a ZK Sync delegate mystery. ZK Sync governance went live yesterday. There are no proposals yet, but at least everything seems to be set up technically. Since I'm one of the Ethfinance delegates, I had been visiting the page regularly to check for updates. That's why I noticed some interesting changes in voting power. Here's some examples. Stanny from Aave, 9 million in August, has now 45 million in September. I don't want to butcher these names. I won't even try to do this correctly. Baki ER, 12 million in August, 61 million in September. And Polynaya, aka Liberosist, had 8 million in August and 38 million in September. Two of the top three delegates, SyncSwap, L2Beat, and Olympio, are more or less unchanged with the exception of L2Beat. They have more than doubled in voting power from 47 million to 106. For Stanny and Baki ER, the changes are perfectly visible in the chart on the right-hand side here. I'll open this up in another tab. For Polenia, I checked the received delegations tab in their delegate profile. All three profiles show basically the same. There's your chart over here on the right, and then Polenia. Okay, good. Huge delegations on both the September 9th and September 12th. Okay, so where do all these delegated tokens come from? The biggest delegation to Polynaya is from this account, which is basically non-existent on-chain according to the ZK Sync Explorer. It received the ZK tokens 3 months ago from a wallet that received, I don't even try to figure out this number, 69 billion ZK tokens, and has been transferring the tokens to a lot of new addresses. I did a quick check, and most of these accounts don't show any activity. The top delegations to both Stanny and Baki ER from the past couple days show basically the same patterns. With a basic math, we can see that 6.9 billion is basically 33% of the total supply, which makes me think this is likely the wallet that distributes contributes to the team and investors, because according to this blog post, I've got it up here. There it is from June 11th. That's the only receiving party that makes sense. So are these changes in voting power just team members and investors delegating their locked tokens just before governance goes live? Did ZK Sync just tell everyone to delegate? I don't see any other explanation, but maybe I'm completely off. Are there any other ideas? That is courtesy of Benito 2030 on Ethfinance with a Deuter score of 140.
I'm going to quickly interject here, JT. I think actually there is an interesting. I know, Rhett, you've had some opinions of ZK Sync based on your work with them. I don't know if you want to share those publicly, yeah, it's there's industry scuttlebutt about ZK Sync. I'll put it that way.
We're all in on scuttlebutt token. Go ahead.
I don't know, Rhett. I'll let you share or not, depending on your own professional instincts.
Oh, I don't have a lot to say, but I am a fan of Polynia. So of the people to delegate to, I think that's probably a good one. I know Stani was an early investor, so there. Yeah, I don't know where all the delegation is coming from. Maybe it is the team. I don't know.
Interesting. That's a lot. It's a lot, isn't it? Okay, moving on down the list. User H. Suki covers the SEC backpedaling. H. Suki's made the Weekly Doots at least 2 weeks in a row now with a Doot score of 21. The U.S. SEC backpedaled and finally admitted that cryptocurrencies are not, air quote, securities, but simply, quote, crypto assets. There were multiple articles that covered this yesterday, being Crypto Cointelegraph, Decrypt U Today, and Crypto News. In summary, the SEC admitted that they didn't consider cryptocurrencies as securities, but crypto assets. This only applies within the U.S., and many other countries never classified crypto as securities in the first place, but as digital assets. The quote, with its use of the term crypto asset securities, the SEC is not referring to the crypto asset itself as the security. The agency said instead of token status as a security consists of the full set of contracts, expectations, and understandings centered on the sales and distribution of the bracketed crypto asset. It said, citing language from an earlier filing. Thus, cryptocurrencies are not securities, but how they're offered along with contracts and expectations can be considered securities. That's what Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, and the entire crypto community have been saying all along. And it took the SEC this long to finally admit it in court. I'm sure they are under protest. At least one of them was. Awesome. Doubt Stars Are Fire has a HodlerCon 2 update. By the way, are any of you guys going to Thailand this year before I do this?
Most likely I will go if DevCon allows me to speak. So if you know anybody on the DevCon speaking committee, let them know that I'm anxiously awaiting whether or not they're going to allow me to speak.
You've already applied?
Then I'll go to HodlerCon. Yeah, I have applied.
Can you drop me a DM with like the blurb or whatever, and I'll try to hit some people in the back channel and see if
Absolutely.
Is this expensing that shit? I will see you there.
Yeah.
There you go. And then Logri can back me up, right? We'll get Wander pushed up we'll push the oatmeal through.
While we're on it, Tricky said he wouldn't be able to go unless we fundraise. Superfez said he'd throw in half. So if anyone else likes the Doots and wants to support Tricky for thanklessly doing the Doots for years, you should find that thread on Ethfinance and kick in some so we can make sure he can go to HodlerCon.
What? How many days in a row has he done the daily Doots? Is it like 700 days?
500 or something dumb? Yeah, like exactly. We've had some substitutes, but like he's done this thanklessly.
Yeah.
I think we can chip in as a community and make sure he can go to HodlerCon.
Yeah.
Where's this thread? Post it in the chat, please.
It's in Ethfinance. I'll find it and post it just a second.
Yeah, thank you. That sounded like coup d'etat talking, was it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're not going to let this one go. He's going.
Yeah.
Austin and I are coming, and we're going to be in Chiang Mai because we're working on some pre-confirmation based sequencing stuff. So there's like a whole that I think they call it Edge City.
Okay. So
Anyway,
the good news is
I'm taking us off topic.
Tricky was going to go to DevCon, but he's not going to have the extra money for HodlerCon. So if the flights are already paid for, and that's the big deal, this is just an extra 1 to 2K for hotel and events. And Superfizz already said he'd throw in 1,000. So like this, I'm sure we can do this. Kudata, Austin, you, me, the other 4 people. I think Shiftly already threw some money in. We got this.
Oh, that's very nice of you guys. I can just imagine Tricky on a bamboo raft trying to go from wherever he's from to Thailand because funds were tight, and he gets there and he's got like the beard on and a soccer ball. Anyway, Doubt Stars, this is the Doubt Stars HodlerCon 2 update. Things are starting to finally take shape for HodlerCon 2024 Thailand edition. If you're planning on going to DevCon in Thailand, this could be the perfect opportunity for you to spend some time with your Ethfinance fam. We will be in Phuket from November 16th to the 23rd at the Pullman Panwa Beach. Cost of the hotel is $800, and I have 30 rooms on hold. If you're interested in coming to HodlerCon, fill out the hotel interest form. There it is. We got the Ultimate Beach Resorts ready for you. Here's some events from the itinerary: the pool party at the hotel, the Phuket, hopefully I'm saying that right, food tour, see the Big Buddha. Nice. All-day boat trip to Phi Phi Island. You don't want to go to North Sentinel Island. You want to go to Phi Phi Island and visit an elephant sanctuary. We're still working on the final price for the event ticket. Want to stay up to date? Find out what's happening, join the Discord. Thank you, Doubtstars R5 for the update. Moving on down, user ETHMaxiTard shares Domotheus's write-up on an alternative reality where we went all in on L1-centric scaling. ETHMaxiTard is a duder number 6. Beautiful write-up on an alternate reality where we all went all in on L1 scaling, and it did not end well, according to Domothy on X. In the alternate reality where Ethereum didn't give up on scaling L1, we're still a solid 12 to 18 months away from any implementation of sharding on mainnet. And even then, that's only for the first phase of sharding, in which shards other than the main beacon chain can only receive and serve data. You got to add another 18 to 24 months at best for phase 2, where shards can execute smart contracts to actually lower L1 fees. So for 12 to 18 months, crypto Twitter is bearish on ETH because fees are still too high, and a common FUD talking point is that sharding has been promised for so long now, it's just vaporwave. Well, it'll never happen. Ethereum never ships, as we all know, blah, blah, blah. The best part is that this alternate reality, L2s still exist, except they're actually competing with the Ethereum L1 now, which means crypto Twitter is massively pro L2s and suddenly understands that scaling L1 with shards is way harder and will take way longer than if L1 simply delegated execution to them and focusing on settlement and data availability. In this reality, the anti-ETH crowd on crypto Twitter understands that any scaling done on L1 compounds on the scaling offered by L2s. They decry core dev decisions to air quote focus on Ethereum L1 users as a political, bag biased, and out of touch. By the time execution sharding is out and scale Ethereum finally scales 1000x, everyone will be on rollups enjoying 100,000x scaling. It's so dumb to expect these users to switch back to L1 after all this time, only to be met with a decrease in transactions per second. As if that wasn't enough, out of nowhere we see a few big CT brains making countless Twitter threads and blog posts where they unearth the never seen before ETH research posts where core devs publicly talk about various ideas surrounding cross-shard communication. Air quote, wait, each shard is basically its own blockchain. Smart contracts and tokens have to deploy to all shards if they want their users to reap the touted benefits of execution sharding. No atomic composability between shards, WTF. Air quote. So now it's been a couple more years of core devs dismissing the blatant benefits of L2s, possibly even rejecting a few EIPs along the way. that were proposed by roll-up teams hoping to tweak call data costs or introduce something resembling data blobs we have in our reality. By now, it's common knowledge on crypto Twitter that this sharding plan was basically the same as roll-ups all along, except way worse. Every shard has the same slow upgrade cycles, the same VM, the same time to finality, the same toolings, the same technical debt, the same everything, all imposed from the top down by core devs. Seriously, wouldn't it have made way more sense to limit the scope of L1 to let an L2 ecosystem flourish, trying out different things at a much faster pace, competing with each other openly? But unfortunately, these dumb ETH maxis were blinded by their bags into imposing their will on everyone else, a will that dictates that a single blockchain could magically do everything when it was so obvious to everyone else that the future of blockchain has to be multi-chain. Boy. What a banger.
Cool, Dom, but copy paste it to Ethfinance.
Yeah,
WTF,
no,
mate.
bring it over to our sub. He's on Ethfinance, isn't he? I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah, of course he is.
Oh,
Been a
he's
long
right
time
here.
member.
He's in the replies. Isn't it? Yeah. This is one of the things I write and then immediately mute the notifications.
But come on. Just post it. It's Control C, Control V. There's not even any special formatting in that. It's just text. Come on, buddy.
Yeah. I think he's soldiering on crypto Twitter because we all kind of know a lot of the talking points. But yeah, you're right. He needs to post it directly. Do both. Why not both? What's the meme with the girl, right? Why not both? All right, Henny Abu's ears are burning. Lists off the upcoming ETH Staker community calls. Henny Abu is a duder number 88. Upcoming ETH Staker community calls. Lido CSM run a validator with 2 ETH. That's on September 19th. That was yesterday. NodeSet, hey, become a part of them. You know them. Become a part of the curated operator set. That's coming up in 5 days. Popfer Finance, we talked to them last week. Run a validator with 1 ETH. That's on October 2nd. Steerium, run a validator on easy mode. That's on the 9th of October. And the Ephemery testnet, help test upgrades by running testnet validators. That's on the 14th of October. Thank you, Henny Abu. User Harog. Harog is like climbing up this Doots rich list like crazy lately. He's been double dooted in the daily a couple times. He's at a 103. That dude, like, per capita is like the fastest growing Doots member so far. Let's see. Covers the continuation of the trend of Google getting into crypto. Google is coming further and further into the Web3 game. They started supporting ENS addresses some time ago and directly show a summary of the address in the search results. Today, they announced that they provide Ethereum RPC endpoints for developers for mainnet and testnets at cloud.google.com. I guess this is a continuation of what started a year ago when they became part of the Haleshi Genesis validators, and they run 10,000 Haleshi validators. I did not know that. This new announcement is in direct competition to Alchemy, Infura, and all the other commercial RPC providers. Pretty impressive how these large companies enter the Ethereum ecosystem bit by bit. And this time it is definitely not because of a hype. They have to sell to their shareholders, but probably rather strategically, bingo, to get a foot into the door of the Ethereum space. Man, if this was 2017, the price would have went up $100 just on that.
Yep. It would have tripled
great
overnight.
nuts.
I mean, when they're coming for strategy and not something product related, it's just like, okay, guys, we got to get our foot in the door. It's happening in these other companies. Like, we don't want to miss out on that opportunity.
Yeah. It goes to show the next frontier for cloud development is going to be Web3 and probably located on Ethereum mostly.
Yeah, without a doubt. I feel like it's a repeating thing in my head. AI is here, AI is here, AI is here. And sooner or later, they're going to need to communicate. And some of that communication is going to be blockchain based. I just don't see a way that it's cheap. I mean, I think it could be relatively cheap for them to do some of that. I don't know.
They have to send value in some shape or form, and it's got to be a lot more accessible than an ACH system.
Yeah. Okay. Good shit. Logri the Bard. Okay, so Logri's got this banger. It's on his Rabbit Hole Explorer's Guide. And so he popped this into the daily like Domotheus should have, right? And it's also available at tokenomicsexplained.com.
It's not yet. I'm releasing it piece by piece as I write it.
Ooh,
so this is just.
Are you?
This is like the draft, not final polish. I might move some things around, right? But like, yeah, this is ongoing work on like, God, there's like 5 of these posts already, and let alone I'm not even done. I've got one. The next piece is on like a map of the rabbit hole. Like, here's the basic areas of DeFi if you've never jumped in the chain before. Here's the various caverns you can explore in this fantastical underground world, right? And then I've got one, the last post is on like how to build your social network to avoid scams and build a quality, signal to noise ratio, and not follow the Doquans and the people who are loud and boisterous and tend to go to jail in 4 years.
There's a lot to read here. I'm gonna pull some pieces out of this if that's okay, Logri. This caught my eye right here because this is really good because it's great for beginners. But this paid taxes as you go. This is actually just a specific case of the above point, but I think it bears special mention. It's one thing to be penniless. It's another to be in debt. It's another still to be in debt to the government. The first case is miserable, but you can still live on credit. The second case is bankruptcy and homelessness. The third case is debtor's prison. You cannot afford to invest money you owe for taxes into speculative assets. Therefore, whenever you rotate positions, you should take whatever sum you need to cover the taxes out to safer havens. The specific case that wrecks people has to do with the crash just after the start of the new year, like what happened in, 2018 and 2022. Just before the crash, everyone rotates their capital back into blue chip coins. When this happens, even though they are reducing risk, they are now selling something and buying something else at near all-time high valuations. Then the crash hits. They tell themselves it's just a bear trap and don't sell. And by the time the tax bill is due, they can't even liquidate their entire portfolio to pay the tax bill. Seriously, it's just less stressful to pay if you pay taxes as you go. This section here about people are never giving away free crypto no matter what. Let me make this abundantly clear. I've been around a while. I've been around for many significant events in crypto. No one reputable is ever giving away free ETH for any reason ever. I don't care if their account name is Elon Musk and you think he's so eccentric he might actually be doing it. I don't care if they have a blue check mark next to their name and it appears to be the same account as the one making the announcement. I don't care if it says it's part of a fun new airdrop they are doing ever. On this point, did you guys see the headline today of the social engineering hack that took place and a single Bitcoin owner lost 4,000 BTC worth over $250 million?
That was a profitable fish. Woo!
Man,
oh my gosh.
No takebacks.
I'm like, how did he honeypot that many Bitcoin into one? What the hell happened there?
Was that the same person that Zach XBT found the thieves?
Yeah, that's the guy. He posted a video of them on Twitter celebrating the moment that they stole all the Bitcoin.
Oh, those idiots. Well,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad
I think
they're
two of the three have been arrested last I saw.
Yeah.
Still
Damn.
can't get the BTC back, but
Yeah, and make their life hard. Zach XBT is a good one. He
he's great.
identifies some good people, some not good people.
He is unrelentless.
Yeah. And then finally, Logri has this last bullet point, get rich slow. This last one summarizes the spirit of all the above advice. Thriving in this ecosystem is first and foremost about survival. Surviving is often a matter of having a clear head and assessing risks rationally when everyone else isn't. that requires having your emotions under control. Whenever you take any extreme action, you're going to experience extreme emotions about it. Those emotions will cause you to act rashly. This is how you end up scammed, overexposed, and holding shit coins you honestly don't believe in. Having missed the top of the cycle without taking profit because everything seems so bullish, being liquidated at the bottom. It was a debt to the government, and joining the ranks of the delusioned about what is otherwise a wonderful civilization-changing technology. Life is a marathon. You're only racing yourself. Take the time to learn before taking risks, and don't try to get rich quick here. Get rich slow. Absolute banger by Logri the Bard. Logri the Bard is number 2 on our Doots list at 147. User Vedran explains a new protocol which leverages ZK proofs with identity. Interesting. Duder number 21. Interesting news on the application front. I came across Ramro. That's what I hear. Let's see. Let's bring this over here. Rarimo, building ZK passport-based voting. Interesting news. Which is building ZK passport-based voting. In this post, I'll concentrate on proof of identity aspect of voting. Proof of identity is a stronger guarantee than proof of personhood. I've been intrigued in leveraging government-issued documents as a proof of identity for a while. Yes, government issue. Blasphemy. First of all, I've been disappointed with current Web3 approaches to proof of identity. One's based on monetary incentives. Quote, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail, end quote. Social recovery, not that I delve too deep, seems gameable. Okay, so they're talking about different kinds of proof of identity, right? Dedicated piece of hardware to scan biometric features, maybe, but think about it. Which entities have always had the problem with uniquely identifying a person? Who are the incumbent identity providers? Governments, banks, and lately IT companies like Google, Twitter, Facebook. Sign in with Google. Right off the bat, IT companies' proof of identity is shit. You can easily sybil it. Banks, much better. Having a bank card pretty much means you are a person or a legal entity and not a bot. Nobody can take your money if they don't scam you. Thing is, though, banks rely on government-issued documents. Who carries the burden of identifying a person from the moment they are born? Can they enroll in a school? Can they cross a border? Did they pay taxes? Are they eligible for health care? Important stuff, right? Governments have been doing this for a long time. They have institutions upon institutions for making sure that you are who you say you are. The world works thanks to them having done a decent job. As we entered the third millennium, machine-readable government documents have become a thing. Biometric passports are standardized. Almost all the countries in the world now issue passports compliant with this protocol. Rarimo developed the Freedom Tool, open source, ZK-powered mobile app, which scans your passport and creates a user profile. It claims to preserve authenticity, eligibility, anonymity, and uniqueness. The white paper addressed security claims and assumptions. So here's your Freedom Tool, freedomtool.org, how it works. Okay, open source repository. Yay. All right. Let's see, I lost my train of thought here.
You may want to look at that one, Wander, at some point. And we really do think it's critical for us to have a composite identity profile that's sourced from both on-chain, metrics as well as ideally privacy-preserving protocols that like this. We've looked at a number of sort of ZK-based identity solutions and have not seen this one yet. So glad we were here to hear about this.
Yeah,
Hey,
we'll take a look.
we're here every weekend, boys. Thanks to ZK Proofs, you could prove claims about yourself without giving away unnecessary personal information. You could prove that you're of a legal age without giving any. Okay, and it goes on from there. So like Gitcoin passport is not ZK, is it? Or
No.
right. So that
It is not.
okay. So that's you've already delved into that. What about intuition systems with Billy Ludke? I think they're working on some stuff semi-related to this, but good. There you go. You got some tools under your belt there. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's I think this space is really nascent right now, but it's getting better. It's a lot better than it was even just a year and a half ago when we started. When we started looking into things, it was still pretty fragmented, and there wasn't a ton of really fantastic tooling out there to try and get identity while preserving the anonymity of those people. You know, GDPR and the privacy laws that are coming online in the United States and elsewhere in the world, um, require basically that, if you're going to keep this kind of personal data on hand as an organization, you need people to be able to delete it and all sorts of other stuff. And, this is a really good thing for end users, but it actually adds quite a bit of compliance burden that most companies and organizations don't want to handle. And I mean, we're no different in the sense that we don't want to actually spend the money to, deal with all that. But it's also like, from a pure cypherpunk perspective, we also don't want the responsibility, right? I mean, if that just becomes a big honeypot for people to try and take over our servers, and we already have enough security concerns as is. I mean, as a company, NodeSet wants to be, curating a set of responsible node operators, but we don't necessarily want to be a personally identifiable information holder. Those are two separate things, right? And so I think this is a really valuable service that the space needs, and hopefully these kinds of solutions will continue to grow over time and get even more relevant across everything.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Okay. Moving on down, Benito 2030 is whoops, I messed that up. Sorry. 140 on the list. Damn. I'm bearish on hardware wallets. Obviously, smart contract wallets are getting way better, which is one reason. But if a nation state can manipulate thousands of small electronic devices and people don't find out until it's too late, they can manipulate hardware wallets as well. This is just a general thought, but be aware of the risks. Harog replies, the only thing I can say is that when you become a target of one of the larger three-letter agencies or equivalent governmental, emphasis on mental, agencies of some countries, there is pretty much nothing you can do. They will get to you, get all your assets, and only if you go to the most extreme links, you might be able to prevent that. Since we know since the Snowden revelations that the NSA has an internal catalog where you can order replacement parts, which then get exchanged during a shipment of an order to the target. Wow. This is happening by diverting the shipment to an unknown location, replace part of the electronics device with an NSA produced one, and then continue the shipment to the customer, which obviously is not aware of any diversions or replacements. As far as I remember, they also had ready-made casing, which included a spy device for the most popular laptops and electronic devices. I guess the same thing could happen with a hardware wallet, but to be honest, I expect it to be easier for them to monitor your used wallets, get a list of your addresses, and get to the seed phrases afterwards when they arrest you. Most people will have written it down somewhere. Surely you can always just keep your seed phrase in your head like a brain wallet, but I guess it's only a very small fraction of the crypto users that really go that far. For them, getting in your hot wallet will probably be easier than attacking a hardware wallet, so a hot wallet is not safer at all. If the goal is to attack the chain itself by compromising thousands of hardware wallets, I'm pretty sure they could do that. Not sure what the legality of this would be, but hey, as history and current events show, these agencies have a different legal rule book than most of us have to follow. I still think having hardware wallet in some form is one of the best defense one can have. Normal hackers will not be able to get to the private keys as they ideally never leave the device. Hello, Ledger. If you pair it with a smart contract multi-sig wallet where an attacker would have to attack several hot wallets or even hardware wallets at the same time, I deem it pretty much impossible that you will lose your ETH due to a supply chain attack.
Yeah, use hardware wallets, people. Just please.
Listen, man. Israel doesn't need to put a bomb in my wallet. I'm perfectly capable of ruining my own future. Now, look, don't worry. I'll get hacked eventually.
He's done it a few times already. Trust him. He's experienced in this.
Well, it was a nice DM for me. Elon Musk giving me all that free ETH. Who knew? You know. Oh man, yeah. So what a crazy. I'm looking on Twitter as that stuff's unfolding. I'm like, how the hell? And it's like, okay, shell company, right? Undersell everybody else, undercut your competition to the point they can't say no, and then offer several different product offerings and just load them up and ship it out. What a freaking deal. What a freaking deal that was. I worked for Grid Plus in the past, and I still do a little bit of work, and I can't say a whole lot about how theirs are produced. I will say the parts come in from all over the world, and they load the firmware stateside, and that's that. And it's like a single engineer in a very, very secure facility. It's pretty cool. But anyway, that is something to consider. I mean, did anybody else like feel their phone vibrate in their pocket and like take it out and just quietly set it on that counter and be like, I'm just going to leave that over there for the rest of the day? Okay.
There is a pretty good essay written by Ken Thompson. I tried to paste it in the chat, but
okay, good.
I'm not allowed to paste links. But it's about trusting trust. And for those who don't know Ken Thompson, he's like one of the pioneers of computer science, and it's called About Trusting Trust. And it is very nice to go back and read that when you read things like this to get your paranoia down a little bit. But it's sort of like that you can't trust everything if you take sort of like a reductionist view of things, but sort of on like a holistic level, perhaps you could. But it is sort of awful to read, but it's also sort of reassuring. So I could recommend that one.
Hey, Kraftwerk, I sent you a friend request, but Clyde said that you're not accepting requests. If you want to DM me that link, we can get it shared to the chat before the end of the call so people can take a look at it. Thanks for sharing and contributing. All right. Very good. Bear 10 explains why the ratio matters. Boy, this is going to be a fun one. The ratio matters for me. Hold on. Bear 10. Let me look at your score, babe. Bear 10. Duder number 27 for this week. The ratio matters for me because objectively Ethereum is better at everything that Bitcoin does. There's no reason why Bitcoin is a better store of value. And this reality has to be reflected in the ratio at some point. BTC is very flawed and is not sustainable. A BTC failure without a profound change is inevitable. It's absolutely perplexing that the market does not realize this. I don't care about dollar prices much because I think the crypto space realizing what's important is the first step on the journey. I care about the ratio because it reflects the market realizing rational facts. It's not about money. I care about the future of human society and about the improvement of our society. And I honestly believe that only Ethereum can deliver a credibly neutral, trustless financial system from a bedrock for finance that cannot be corrupted. I want this platform to succeed because it will improve the world. Finally, a level playing field that can be set up in a way that empowers people and organizations and stops corrupt governments. It can be a counterweight for fraud and corruption and government overreach. That is why I'm into crypto. That is my main focus. So I care about the ratio because Bitcoin is the wrong way and Solana is the wrong way, as none of them can deliver what is needed. A financial system that is trustless and can cater to the entire planet. Ethereum is on its way to achieve this. As long as Bitcoin ratio is so bad, it means that people are not realizing what the purpose of blockchain technology is, and people did not realize what tools they have at their disposal to manage their finances in a way that cannot be tampered with. Yes, obviously we are not there yet. Ethereum has many, many flaws, but we are on the path to it. And the ratio is an indicator for blockchain technology to actually fulfill its purpose. Holding coins that cannot be deflated, Bitcoin will fail at this, by the way, is just part of the equation. People using crypto for everything that banks usually do for crypto to replace centralized systems, that's what I want. I want traditional companies to be either replaced or reorganized on Ethereum rails. I want the upper people to slowly distribute their power to more people. Blockchain did not achieve anything yet. It's just the start, the very first day of a century-long journey, and the ratio is an indicator when we are out of phase one, realizing why blockchains are valuable. We are still in phase one, where the people do not know why blockchain is important. For me, it's not about money, it's about change. And the ratio is an indicator for that change. If Ethereum does not flip Bitcoin, then blockchains are useless. And it's really just a speculative meme coin casino and nothing more. Bitcoin for me is the NR1 meme coin. It has a strong narrative, but it fails at real world utility and is not designed to be sustainable long term. It needs centralized entities to offer services, thus the fact that it's decentralized matters only insofar that it can be inflated arbitrarily. It can't be inflated arbitrarily. However, the security of the protocol is dependent on the inflation to the system, so the system is about to fail. If Ethereum flipping Bitcoin and Ethereum becoming the most expensive asset on this planet is when we will be able to see crypto change the world profoundly. And that's all I want. Everything else is just secondary. I do have enough money. I don't need a Bugatti. I do have a job. I want Ethereum specifically to be a guarantee for a free and open internet monetary system that cannot be censored. I want entities like the EU, China, America, Google, Facebook, Apple, AGI to not have total control, to have to deal with a platform that they cannot censor and that won't be corrupted by them. I want Ethereum to be that strong. We are not there yet, but we could be one day. And flipping Bitcoin is the first step on that journey. It seems outlandish, but this was the reason why I even got interested in crypto in the first place, the prospect of that happening. And Bitcoin dropped the ball by ossifying too early and just focusing on an unsustainable inflation schedule. I know why this is on the Weekly Doots, because I wanted it to be. This is the only one I was like, get this on the thing. Yeah, this is so
You didn't like
good.
my post? That was bullshit.
I love it. I love it all.
This is I actually say this a lot to Nick, that while the ratio is low compared to Bitcoin, Ethereum, that is a true indicator that we are so early. That this is still phase. He says it's phase one, or they say it's phase one, but I would say it's phase zero. We're not even at the point where this technology is recognized by the people that it's their job to recognize emerging technologies. So there is still just so much opportunity. So if you ever get concerned that you're too late to the party, and that like it's all over or whatever, I think it's worth keeping that in mind. Go back and look at the Amazon stock price, and see what happened to it. Between 2001 and 2006, nothing. It just kind of flatlined. It's now worth like 100x that. So there's a pretty substantial opportunity here from a financial standpoint, but like this user is mentioning, it's not just finance, it's the whole world will be changed by this technology if it succeeds. And right now the market is totally irrational with it, and that means that just not enough people are aware. And that's an exciting prospect. If you're here now, if you're paying attention, if you're listening to this podcast, that means you're going to make it.
Yeah.
I needed to hear that today, Mike. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's worth revisiting every once in a while. I feel like we lost a lot of the people that used to dive into the use cases, the applications on chain, what was innovating, people actually using this stuff, right? And lately, at least on Ethfinance, has been on just a lot more ratio complaining and price complaining and speculating in TA and whatnot. And that is not why I joined this community as much, right? Yeah. I'd really rather we had people talking about like RS, XRETH, for example, on the daily. I'd like to talk about innovations in DEXs and money markets and everything going on with leverage and everything going on with L2s and bridging and messaging. And I guess we get a decent amount of like the EIP discussion, like the core protocol changes get discussed. But I don't feel that we talk enough about changing shifts in adoption of what people are practically using this stuff for. I know that there's many members of Ethfinance who have never like tried to LP anything. There's like, look, the risk of IL is too high. Like, well, there are stablecoin pairs. You can go and make like 15% just
Like asset pairs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just using basically like kind assets. And if you don't like a 15% savings account, I don't know what to tell you. That seems like a useful thing to me that people should be using, but they're just not as aware of it. The fact that isn't a enticing enough deal that more capital hasn't flowed in to dilute it, it just is bewildering to me. And I think it's just an artifact of us not talking about the options that are out there enough, right? Talking about what makes some of them better. Like what is the risk of GHO? How does it compare to DAI? What is SDAI and how does that compare to DAI? What is going on with the new Sky protocol? What is going on with Euler V2? How are the pools structured? What are the governance risks in various places? How do we get that down? Like, I know this matters a lot to the people on this call, but I just maybe we're all too busy, heads down, trying to make the next thing, and we're not spending the time we need to discuss what makes the chain great today. Because the majority of the economic value is on Ethereum. The majority of the development is on Ethereum. The majority of app development is on Ethereum. It's not on Solana. It's not on these other places. It's not in meme coins, right? Like the majority of people building something that actually has a chance of improving the world, it's on Ethereum. You can see this in Electric Capital Report year after year, time and time again, right? It's just so glaringly obvious how much the people that actually understand this technology gravitate towards Ethereum overwhelmingly, right? The people that aren't on Ethereum are often not just on one other chain, they're on 10 other chains, right? They're just scattershotting like whatever they have to try and see where they can find product market fit because they're having a hard time competing with the core builders on Ethereum. So we have the most loyalists. We definitely have the most dev hours. We definitely have the most TVL. We definitely have the most just economic activity, the most active wallets. It's all on Ethereum. And the fact that the market can't see that is just kind of strange, right? It just
It's
feels
incredible alpha.
yeah, it just feels like if you're in the middle of it, it just feels a bit unfair. Like, look, we
Yeah.
succeeded at all the things that we said we would succeed at.
That's
right.
That's why
Like, we got the
people are bitter
merge.
about it. That's
Like,
why
we got the
they're
merge and we succeeded there. Oh, we did L2s, and look, the L2 adoption is going like 10x. We did blobs, isn't that amazing? Like we have like burn, and we have these in superior tokenomics. We have better security. Now we're going to be doing restaking stuff, and people are just like, and why isn't the price going up? It just feels like it's like you get to your job at the end of the year and they pip you despite you having made them like $10 million, right? You're like, the fuck, right? It doesn't seem to make sense. But the market is so narrative focused at the moment, and so jumping from one narrative to the next. And this year it's been DeepIn and AI, right, has gone up a lot. The current investment space in VCs is like Bitcoin Renaissance was this thing earlier this year, right? So it's like Babylon chain and whatnot, but just it's money focused, sloshing around from one narrative to the next. Like, what if Bitcoin wasn't just a pet rock? And then like you have the word Bitcoin in there and they throw $100 million at you in a VC raise, right? Even just the investment space is very crowded, and VCs themselves, like, they're having a hard time despite the high valuation, low float airdrops. They're having a hard time like making a profit because the valuation that they're buying in at is very high, and it's getting increasingly crowded as a trade. So like, where is the like who is like people want to say the VCs are making all the money? Even that's not true. Increasingly, it's getting very crowded. So just like people at the base builder level able to raise $100 million from a white paper that has like nothing to it, right? That's where the money is largely being made right now, and they have every incentive to kind of like jam in the current narrative and siphon off the value from where the real economic activity is occurring. So
this will continue to be a problem, I think, for several years until the ratio improves enough to exceed Bitcoin, or at least grow enough so that it will be a sort of exponential rise, I think, when it happens. And you just need to be on the rocket, right, when that occurs.
I think restaking has a real chance. And by restaking, I mean all the other types of compute that you mentioned earlier in the call, ZK proving, securing other L1s, various AI services, proof of location services, data availability services, all of these other, I want to make a promise to someone and they trust me because I put up some type of collateral, right? And You take the combination of the revenue from all of that sort of compute and you put it together, and I think it's enough to significantly increase the effective ETH yield. And where you have yield, capital is going to jump into it to try and dilute that. And where you have that, you're going to get a sudden sink for a couple 10 million more ETH. There's 18 million like loose float at the moment on centralized exchanges. So if we can sink another 18 million ETH into this system, right, create demand for another 18 million ETH there, then economically there isn't enough float to sustain the current low prices. It just has to go up. There's no other choice.
Yeah, eventually I think there will be, like, I mean, people at traditional finance firms do research, they do think about cash flow, they think about, you know, things in a way that in the crypto space, blockchains have not really traditionally been evaluated via their profit mechanisms or their revenue taking in via fees and all that kind of stuff.
It's just
mostly
the price
because of
alone.
the narrative. Yeah, exactly. And that's, again, I think we're early kind of thing, right? Eventually Goldman Sachs is going to have teams of analysts looking at different blockchains and coming to the same conclusion that we all do, because it's just the truth, right? We're just so early that this space is so volatile. People view this as, I mean, Ethereum could still fail, right? If people don't want to actually use it for some reason, or it may still, the real success may be 20 to 30 years off if it takes a long time for actual products that come to the end user to, you know, attract a lot of value to the chain. So it could be a very long time before, you know, the things work out.
I don't know that the end user needs to. There's this DeFi mullet thesis, right, where it's like, actually what'll happen is once the banks get the regulatory clarity, they will go and take the money deposit to a bank and they'll dilute my 15% savings account that I'm getting right now, right? I was wondering why the money wasn't coming from there. And like, you only need a couple sophisticated users with large piles of money to dilute that down to a more sensible 8% from 15%, and then it's, you know, they can take a cut of that and make massive amounts of profit. I mean, like hundreds of billions, right? That could be extracted from an ecosystem that's currently just kind of like hobbyists, I guess. Bagging around, like wildly financially successful hobbyists at this point, maybe, but still hobbyists.
Yeah, but yeah, eventually it will become the stuff of professionals, and it just takes, you know, the world recognizing it to get there. I need to drop out. Thanks, guys. This has been amazing.
Good
Nick,
chat.
I think, can stay on to chat about the incentive program that Gravita will be putting in place for XRETH.
Certainly.
But I have to go to stand up. We actually have to get this product out. So I'll see you guys later.
Good luck.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of minutes here. I've got a 1 month old who may go apoplectic here, but yeah. So real quick, and to incentivize early adoption of XRETH, what Gravita will be doing is setting aside the first quarter's worth, a portion of the first quarter's worth of RPL fees into a pot, and for those who mint XRETH within the first month post launch, you will receive your proportional share of that pot. And there are some conditions around that. You need to hold XRETH for 6 months. There's sort of a snapshotting at the end of that 6-month process. And if you've been holding it either just in your wallet or utilizing it across a number of DeFi venues that will be explicated by Rhett and his team at some point, you will then receive that. You'll be able to claim that reward. And they're just leveraging their existing Ascend program back-end infrastructure to do this. They're going to have their token generation event for Grav soon. I don't know exactly when, but yeah, so it should be relatively easy to implement, and we hope that that's sufficient to get some more additional interest on top of the interest that we're drumming up already. Any support is really impactful early on in the life cycle of Constellation, so we certainly appreciate it if you can find an ether or two underneath your couch cushion.
Absolutely. Or become get on the list to become a node operator.
Just know that most of the yield that you're getting from holding these LSTs at the moment is actually coming from like ARB incentives, OP incentives. It's on L2s, right? The like 3% you're getting from being an LST is not the majority of the yield. Like you can make 10%, but you have to be basically on an L2. So you need to engage with the L2s that have those incentive programs, get into their step.
We already are. Yeah, Dolomite was one, and a couple others that we're chatting with, and want to be actively engaging with the L2s who are all, like you mentioned, heavily incentivizing usage of their various DEXs or CDPs, etc. So yes,
So,
we are.
Show me a pool,
investigating.
and I will gladly hold some XRETH for you.
We appreciate it, Logri. Thank you.
Thanks again, Nick.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the time.
You bet.
It was a lot of fun, and
Let's do it again.
feel free to pop in a notes at Discord and chat with us whenever you feel like it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. See ya.
And just to let people know, I was able to get the PDF put in the chat, on the public voice chat here on Discord from Kraftwerk. This was the PDF that Ken Thompson wrote back in 1984. There's a bunch of data in here, and he's got a lot to read. The morale of the headline here says, Reflections on Trusting Trust. To what extent should one trust a statement that a program is free of Trojan horses? Perhaps it is more important to trust the people who wrote the software. Interesting. 1984. That is 40 years ago. My gosh.
Trust is kind of a multi-thousand-year-old problem.
Isn't no doubt about it. All right. And I think we got Tricky Troll is the last one for this week's Doots. Let's see. Tricky Troll. He's up on that leaderboard quite a bit. A good while ago, I told you all I am slow to get around to do things, but I wanted to add some default user flares. Well, as prophesied, I was indeed slow to get around to it, but lo and behold, we now have default user flares. The new ones have some color where the old custom ones didn't. Custom ones are still an option. They just won't be as colorful as the default flares. Also, these default ones should give us a good idea of your vibe. If you're new, a TA guy, a long-term investor, etc. Hopefully we could get a better feel for what angle you're coming from when you make a post here. And at the end of the day, we want less conflict, and hopefully a bit of context as to your leanings might help a bit. If not, it's still just a bit of fun. Feel free to grab a meme flare if that's your style. Finally, I'm happy to add some more. So let me know what you want to see added, maybe even a color request. Send me your hex codes. Though I think we might reserve one color for the mods. Maybe we can color coordinate our flares. Currently, it's a bright, ugly shade of blue, so you're not missing out on much. And that is Tricky Troll. So... yeah, you can set your own flare. I should also mention, I think at the top, let's see if we got it. Let me go to today's daily, for instance, because Henny Abu, I tried to put this link on the sidebar, but it didn't work. But here it is. It's your Doots extension. Okay, so if you want it, it's open source. Henny Abu made it. It's a Doots extension screenshot. And when you install it, he's got all of the Doot data that we collect, and it'll show up next to the users that have made the Doot list at least one time. So this is all hand selected by Tricky Troll, and as you all know. So if you want a way to quickly see what other people's Doot score as you scroll through the daily, you can do that pretty good. Look at this. See, this is moderator stuff. Why did this get removed? But see, I have ethical trade here at Duder94, see? So I know that this is a good community person, so I can approve that. But it could be sometimes, depending on what the URL is, it might be coming from a bad, crypto briefing. It might be.
Yeah, it was a
Crypto Slate. Yeah. Okay, so that has to be manually approved by the moderators. Finding good sources of news will do that. But every now and then, it doesn't happen very often, but there are words that are completely shadow banned across Reddit. Do you know what the biggest one is? It blew me away when I found this out. Arbitrum.
Holy shit.
Arbitrum. I don't know if it still is. Let's just do a test. If I type in Arbitrum and then hit save, we'll give it a second. They may have lifted it, but it's weird because Reddit was doing their own Reddit was doing their own token things on Arbitrum once upon a time, and for whatever reason, they blacklisted any mention of it across the website. I don't know if that was their lawyers getting in their ear. If it would have been shadow banned or removed, it would have happened by now, unless they're somehow green-lighting moderators, which I doubt.
I was going to guess it was going to be some LGBTQ thing like CIS gender or something.
No, it was right. It was literally right after. It was literally right after they started doing their Reddit community point stuff on Arbitrum. It was right around that same time. Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap up this week's show. Really appreciate everybody hanging out. This was a one for the books. It was so nice to talk to the team from NodeSet. Thanks again to Nick and Rhett and Wonder and for hanging out for this week. It was just incredible. We do have a Poe app, I believe, for this week by Hani Abu. We haven't had one for a while, but I think he's got, no, maybe he doesn't. No, not this week. Okay. It looks like he had a Poe app, I thought, but maybe I'm not reading it. Okay. Anyway, you can get this episode on pods.media if you want to do that. Oh yeah. We've also got our little thing going on the Gitcoin website, as they say. I got to find the link here because I didn't put it in my show notes. Explore public goods. Let's see. Metis Octant. Here we go. The community round 1 for Octant. We are down here. Let's Control F podcast. If I could do it. There it is. EV Mavericks Doots podcast. We have 17 contributors totaling $554, it looks like. 17 contributors, 6 days to go. If you want to kick in on some of this, it'd be awesome. Thanks to Octant, Gitcoin for getting some matching funds going. I think this entire community round is a 10 ETH matching pool for all these different folks out here. I did give to another one of the teams that was on here, growthepie.xyz. I've seen them in the subreddit. They've been posting in the daily, so I figured I would throw a couple of duckies their way. I should probably see if they want to have somebody come on the camera and talk to us a little bit about what is Grow the Pie. So it's mastering Ethereum Layer 2's gateway to curated analytics and knowledge. Look at all this beautiful data they have. Pretty neat. All right, we'll stick around after the live stream because we continue the party in the hotel lobby for a bonus hour of popcorn right here on Discord. It's a fun place to let loose when the parents aren't watching on YouTube. Hi, Mom. On behalf of Ethfinance and the EV Mavericks DAO, my name is JT. Cheers and big hugs from Kansas City.